for let's see, this is the 26th day, the eighth month in the heavenly calendar, during the 16th year of Cheongi. Tim Elder sitting in for the second king of Cheongguk, and let's go take our walk around the kingdom right now. In Chongpyeong, Tennessee, it is clear and 47 degrees. Today getting up to 72, sunny this morning, sun in areas of high clouds this afternoon, and a nice afternoon for outdoor activities. Tonight, partly cloudy and getting down to 50 degrees. And in father's hometown of Jeongju in our North Pyongan province in Korea, we have currently 56 degrees and cloudy, getting down to 38 tonight. Occasional rain this evening, otherwise mostly cloudy and colder. Tomorrow, colder with abundant sunshine, high at 55. At the Cheongguk Palace in Northeast Pennsylvania, we have 37 degrees under clear skies right now, getting up to 62 today with abundant sunshine there as well. And tonight, clear to partly cloudy, low of 38. Liberty Rock RV Park and Campground in Limestone County, Texas, clear and 62, getting up to 89 today. Partly sunny, warm, and humid. Tonight, mostly cloudy, warm, and humid, low of 70. At the Suncheon Palace in Korea, South Korea, it is currently mostly cloudy and 71. But it also says that it's raining, and rain will continue for 56 minutes. I guess there's some rain coming from those clouds. Tonight, getting down to 68, cloudy, warm, and humid, a little rain late. Tomorrow, cloudy with a couple of showers, mainly later. High of 72. Clouds tonight, 59. Tomorrow, and let's look at the temperature at the Guangzhou in Guangdong province of China, clear and 89. Let's see, can we get, I think that's okay, there. Tonight, clear to partly cloudy, warm, and very humid, low of 79. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy and very hot, and a high of 98 there in Guangzhou. That's even warmer than Taiwan. Okay. All right, and then let's go to Father's Word. Let's see here. Okay, let's see. I got the book upside down. See that? Okay. We're in the book of True Parents, or yes, I guess we can say True Parents in the plural. Let's see, just to get some light on this. Okay. Chapter 2, Section 2. Okay. The Messiah is the true parent. I think we've had this paragraph before, haven't we? Well, okay, well, maybe we need to look at it again, all right? Chapter 2, Section 2, subsection 1. So, chapter 2, 2.1, the beginning of that subsection. So what kind of person is the Messiah who is to come? And here, again, someone's going to stand up and say, oh, Father is talking about someone other than himself being the Messiah. Well, come on, get a grip. Okay. He is a person who can stand as the substantiation of the faith and hope and love of not only individuals, but also families, tribes, ethnic groups, nations, the world, and cosmos. And it is only when he stands in such a position that he can become the crystallization of the faith that remains in the history, in human history, and become the crystallization of the hope, and become the crystallization of the love. Sometimes speaks like this, where he's sort of redundant, right? And but there's a purpose in his redundancy. But English people translating it to English will say, I know not such good stuff. But come on, he wants to be redundant. Let it be redundant. uh, without this, there can be no crystallization of faith and hope. The words he speaks are not individual. The words of an individual are not the words of an individual. And when you begin to shout with such conviction, well, he says shout here, but I don't think he actually means shout, or he's just saying when you begin to, give lecture, for example, or speak, or give a sermon. When you begin to speak with such conviction, then those words are coming from the mouth of an individual, but the words become words that have global or world or global, so I say world or global, uh, let's say global content, and um, union is a bond, as in blessed be the ties that bind, or um, ties, or sort of relationship, I think is another word. So global historic uh, words, content of global historic significance. All right, so this the Messiah to come has to be this crystallization of our faith, hope, and love. Praise God. And praise God for the word that He's given us this morning. All right, let's take a look at what's going on. And well, so the big thing next week is the fourth plenum at the Chinese Communist Party, where they're going to discuss the 5-year plan, past, present, future, and so forth and so on. But more important than that is the effect that it may or may not have on the leadership. And as we get closer to the plenum, things are sort of becoming kind of coming to a head, right? And not only in terms of the trade war with the United States and the whole rare earth thing, but also within China as well. And what we see here is, let's see here, where did I go? Okay. Yeah, here we go. What we see here now that Reuters is reporting, and I think some other sort of outlets may have reported this already, but Reuters is putting it out now. China expels 2 top generals from Communist Party in anti-corruption purge. And this happened this article was published less than an hour ago. And it was updated to 10 minutes ago. So we don't know when this actually happened, but the Defense Ministry announced this on Friday. Beijing, October 17th, the 2 top Chinese generals have been expelled from the ruling Communist Party and the military for serious violations of discipline and law, the country's defense ministry said on Friday. Ho Weidong, and China's number 2 general, and Miao Hua, the Chinese army's top political officer, are the most senior military officials to be purged as part of an anti-corruption campaign that has targeted the People's Liberation Army leadership since 2023. So I bring this up especially because this is, not the kind of thing that you might normally do if you're planning an invasion or a military action in the next few days. And as the fourth plenum, which begins Monday, comes closer, some people within the for various reasons, and to give them an excuse to do so, they may want to. But and if you look at what they're doing, yes, they obviously are preparing for war, but they're having all sorts of meetings, and they're training all sorts of people and stuff like that. But at the same time, they're firing their 2 top generals just 2 days before, or 3 days before the fourth plenum begins, kicking them out of the Communist Party. Interesting. But hey, I'm the one that said, or I'm one of the people that said that Putin is not going to invade Ukraine because it's not in his interest. And it was right in a sense that it was not in his interest, but I was wrong on Putin on invading. So anyway, that's what we have going on right now there. So we'll have to see, and we'll just continue to pray that God's will be done in terms of the sort of the tension that is going on between the at least two and perhaps more factions within the Chinese Communist Party. But as I said, I'm not counting on Xi Jinping's demise, bringing about the demise of the Chinese Communist Party. So let's see here. But also, let's see here. So that's all that we have on China today. Well, the whole rare earth of U.S. That would stop them in their tracks. And so I think the going into the meeting with Korea, President Trump has the China access to the dollar. Of course, that kind of also think the world economy, including the U.S. economy. So I'm sure very, very last resort. But China's used to the vast majority of the most advanced semiconductors in the world. But those semiconductors from China, and China is saying, hey, if you're going to use more than 0.1% of our rare earths, and well, if Taiwan were to apply, or the TSMC, is it? Taiwan, yeah, TSMC were to apply for such a license, that's the Taiwanese company, the big one. I don't know. We would have to find out. But China thinks that it's in a similar position as OPEC was in the early 1970s with respect to oil, where OPEC went on a boycott against the U.S. and Japan and a lot of other, and Western Europe and a lot of other countries, saying that, hey, we're not going to export oil to any country that supports Israel. And that caused a panic for a while, but eventually those countries got over that and they developed their own oil resources, right, aside from OPEC. So anyway, here we have a situation now where things are coming to a head this weekend, today, tomorrow, Sunday, and we'll have to watch closely to see what happens. But I, you know, I don't. I was wrong about Putin in Ukraine, but still, I kind of doubt that um, China is going to attack Taiwan in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 days. But I'm generally wrong on these things, so I'll take it for what it's worth, which may not be very much. All right. All right, let's see here. Now, on Ukraine, President Trump is going to bring Zelensky to the White House. Hmm. Hmm. Really? Is that necessary? Okay, and he also had a phone call, a 2-hour phone call with Putin. So things are sort of perhaps moving there. I don't know. Um, President Donald Trump will host Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky on October 17th, which will be today, at the White House as part of a renewed effort to end the conflict in Eastern Europe. This will be Zelensky's third visit to the White House this year, after successfully brokering a peace deal between Israel and Hamas and securing the return of hostages. Trump has now turned his attention to the war in Ukraine. Here is what to know about the upcoming meeting. Trump said that he had a very productive call on October 16th, that would be yesterday, with Russian President Vladimir Putin and agreed to meet with him in Budapest, Hungary soon. Zelensky and I will be meeting tomorrow in the Oval Office, where we will discuss my conversation with President Putin and much more. Trump wrote on Truth Social after the call. I believe great progress is made with today's telephone conversation. Speaking to reporters later that day, Trump said that Putin and Zelensky have a terrible relationship. Oh, really? Is that news? Which he described as a major obstacle to peace. Still, he struck an optimistic tone, saying, "We hope we're going to get the war stopped." Trump said his top advisors, led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, will first meet with their Russian counterparts. President Putin and I will then meet in an agreed upon location, Budapest, Hungary, to see if we can bring this inglorious war between Russia and Ukraine to an end, he wrote. Trump later told reporters that the meeting with Putin could take place within 2 weeks. So that would be during the remainder of this month. Two leaders last met in Alaska in August. And, there's a lot of discussion about that meeting in August. And, well, not much was accomplished. In fact, nothing was accomplished in the short term, except bringing Putin onto American soil. Mm. In recent weeks, Russia has intensified missile and drone strikes on Ukraine, targeting mainly its civilian energy infrastructure. The latest strikes have destroyed nearly 60% of gas production in October, raising fears that millions of Ukrainians could again face freezing temperatures, power outages, and blackouts this winter. To offset the losses, Ukraine is seeking to import liquefied natural gas from the United States and looking for ways to finance the purchases, according to Economy Minister, difficult name. In the early hours of October 16th, Moscow launched more than 300 drones and fired 37 missiles at targets throughout Ukraine, Zelensky said in a message on X. Russia has deliberately targeted Ukraine's energy infrastructure and power grid in recent strikes in the aim of plunging cities into the cold and darkness once winter sets in. According to Razom for Ukraine, which is a U.S. nonprofit organization that advocates for Ukraine. So, yeah, this is not an objective source. It advocates for Ukraine. But anyway, let's take it from that is. U.S.-made weapons, including Tomahawk missiles, are expected to be a central topic during Zelensky's visit. Earlier this week, Trump said he was considering providing Ukraine with long-range Tomahawk missiles to aid in its war against Russia. Well, Putin has said that if that happens, if Trump does sell or provide Tomahawk missiles to Russia, to Ukraine, I'm sorry, to Ukraine, then that would be a huge negative on Trump's relationship with Putin and the U.S. relationship with Russia. And the reason is that Tomahawk missiles have a much longer, significantly longer range than what the Ukraine has had so far. And Zelensky would very much like to have them, but Trump is, well, first of all, he wants to, I guess, try to see if he can bring an end to the war. But I guess he's using Tomahawk missiles as a kind of leverage point with Putin. It sounds like sort of telling Putin, hey, if you don't, help me bring this war to an end, then you're going to leave me no choice but to provide Tomahawk missiles and perhaps a lot more stuff to Ukraine. So we will see. But this still has the significant possibility of developing into a much wider war, potentially something like a World War III. Although people use that term, World War III a lot. But the First World War and Second World War actually fought around the world. And it was in not just Europe and Pacific, but also it was in Southeast Asia. It was down there near Australia. It was also in Africa because of British and German colonies were fighting each other. It was actually a world war, but I don't think there's going to be any war in Africa if Putin starts attacking NATO or the United States. I think Africa is going to probably stay out of it, and probably they may be the ones that gain from such a war. Well, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens with this. So the next 2 weeks, first, the U.S. Secretary of State and Defense Secretary are going to meet their Russian counterparts, and then, well, Secretary of State Rubio, I guess it doesn't say Defense Secretary, but I would imagine the Defense Secretary would also be there, would also meet with his counterpart in Russia. And the idea there would be to work out something that the two presidents can sort of sign off on when they finally meet at the end of this month. President Trump's going to be doing a lot of things at the end of this month. He's meeting Xi Jinping. I think that's still on. Meeting Xi Jinping at the end of this month, going to EPEC at the end of this month. He's going to put in a lot of miles in the last 2 or 3 days of this month. I don't know if all those things are going to actually happen. Well, let's see. I guess some of them might spill over into November. So if this war doesn't get settled, I may send tomahawks, Trump told reporters. So yeah, so obviously he is using tomahawks as a leverage. As of October 16th, however, the president indicated that he had not made a decision on whether to approve the sale. Okay. The Tomahawk system would allow Kiev to strike targets deep inside Russia. Putin had previously warned that supplying Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine would mark a completely new, qualitatively new stage of escalation in the conflict. So that doesn't sound very good. Speaking in the Oval Office on October 16th, Trump said he raised the issue of Tomahawk missile sales during his call with Putin. So yeah, just like I said, he's telling Putin, hey, you got to help me out here or else it's going to be bad. I did actually say, would you mind if I gave a couple of thousand tomahawks to your opposition? Okay. I did say that to him. I said it just that way, Trump said. He didn't like the idea. You have to be a little bit lighthearted sometimes. Tomahawk is a vicious weapon, Trump added. Nobody wants a tomahawk shot at them. So, this is what's happening in today's world where China, US, and perhaps Russia somehow is each country is sort of playing their ace, their strongest card, right? China with the rare earths, US now against Russia with the tomahawks, and I hope he raises the dollar with Xi Jinping when he meets him later this month. I don't know if he will. So that means that the stakes are just as high as they can possibly get, and we're at a point where something could break, and in other words, there could be when people are threatening each other, there's always the possibility that someone's actually going to act on the threat. Because if you make a threat and then don't follow through, if you don't act on it, then you lose credibility, right? Zelensky's visit also aims to strengthen U.S.-Ukrainian economic ties, according to the Ukrainian ambassador to the United States. The ambitious bilateral critical minerals deal has already entered the implementation phase with initial projects underway, she told the Epoch Times. On April 30th, the two countries signed a minerals agreement that gives the United States access to Ukrainian minerals. The deal includes the establishment of a joint investment fund for Ukraine's mineral reserves, oil and gas development, and reconstruction. In parallel, we have launched negotiations on a unique technology sharing agreement that would give the U.S. access to Ukraine's cutting edge drone technologies across land, air, and maritime platforms, the ambassador said. All right. And this author is the senior White House correspondent for Epoch Times. Yeah, we appreciate Epoch Times' presence at the recent Radhavan Freedom Festival, and we hope that our relationship with them can continue to develop in the future. All right, so that's what's going on there, and things are pretty tense. I guess all we can do is continue to follow the situation and make sure that we are aware of what's going on around us, so that we can act accordingly, right, to protect our families and our communities if something does happen, you know. And, if something does break, like I said, then this could affect us in a very serious way. Supply chains will be disrupted. Supply chains of food, for example, could be disrupted, and of course, economies will tank, and job security could be disrupted, and so forth. And so we need to be sure that we know what may be coming, and let's hope for the best, but be prepared for some of the other stuff. All right, let's see here. So that's that. Okay. Now, let's see here. I want to cover this story today. This is not necessarily news per se, but just to sort of remind ourselves that this is actually going on. And these prison camps of North Korea have been going on for many, many decades, going back, I suppose, to the 1940s or 50s, Kim Il-sung. And the most recent report from South Korea is that North Korea is operating 4 political prison camps with up to 65,000 detainees. So in a country with a population of something like 20-some million, I guess it is now. Is that the estimate? And I don't think that's true. We used to say 18 million. Somehow they claim to have increased that rather than decrease that. But I think maybe their population has actually decreased because they had some pretty severe famines, during the 1990s especially. But let's take a look at this. And at the same time, I want to educate ourselves on the provinces of North Korea. I think many of us know the provinces of South Korea, but here in this article, we're going to read about North Hamgyong province, which is up here in the far northeast section, up against the border with Russia. Russia and North Korea have a very short border here that prevents China from gaining access to this body of water here. But anyway, this up here, this is North Hamgyong province. And then we're also going to read about South Pyongan province. South Pyongan province is adjacent to the city of Pyongyang, but to here it's very near. And then father's hometown here is in North Pyongan province, where we check the weather every day. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at these camps. Okay. North Korea is operating 4 political prison camps where up to 65,000 people are believed to be imprisoned and placed under forced labor, a report showed Friday. North Korea is currently operating 4 prison camps, Camp 14, 16, 18, and 25, in South Pyongan province and North Hamgyong province. So just to review again, South Pyongan province and North Hamgyong province. North Hamgyong province is the coldest area. It's right up here against Siberia, and of course, northeast China. South Pyongan province, I think, is a little bit warmer, but it's still pretty cold. It's over here against the Yellow Sea. Okay. According to the report by the state-funded Korea Institute for National Unification. And I would say, I would go further, I would say it's a semi-government, semi-public or semi-government institute there. The latest report was updated from its 2013 report with U.S. satellite imagery and testimonies from North Korean defectors. North Korea has long been labeled one of the worst human rights violators in the world. The North does not tolerate dissent, holds thousands of people in political prison camps, and keeps tight control over outside information. We know this. For example, one of the crimes that the people can commit, serious crimes, is to watch a K-drama, South Korean drama, smuggled in. And these are actually quite popular. Unfortunately, K-drama addiction is not just a American or European phenomenon or Japanese phenomenon. It's a North Korean phenomenon as well. And sometimes there have been literal public executions. People are actually shot dead in public for the crime of watching the South Korean drama. So it's quite serious there. And this is why I kind of am skeptical that their population is actually 20 million. Camp 14 established in Kecheon, South Pyongan province, and you notice that they're a way of Romanizing their geographic names is different from South Korea. In South Korea, this will be spelled Pyeong. So we need to know that in the future. In 1965, Camp 14 was established in 65, was expanded after followers of Chang Song-taek, an uncle of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, who was executed in 2013 for plotting to overthrow the regime, were transferred from Camp 18. Camp 18 was initially placed in Pukchang County of North Hamgyong Province, but relocated to the current location of Kecheon in 2006. Camp 16 is located near the Pungye River nuclear testing site in North Hamgyong Province. Outside experts raised the possibility that inmates at the present camp might be mobilized for labor at the nuclear facility. Camp 25 in Cheongjin, North Hamgyong Province, is a prison-like facility. Unlike other political prisons that look like a village from the outside, it has a capacity to hold around 5,800 detainees. The report estimates that around 53,000 to 65,000 people are being detained across the 4 facilities, down from 80,000 to 120,000 estimated in 2013 report. And I would say that the reduction is not because people are being released, it's because people are dying, starving to death. However, it said the decline in the number was not due to North's move to improve its human rights situation, but driven in part by the closure of Camp 15, also dubbed the Yodo concentration camp, known for its notorious brutality. North Koreans are subject to imprisonment at these facilities when they act against Kim Jong-un's orders or the ruling party's line, commit an anti-state crime, or engage in religious activities. Yes, engage in religious activities. Now, North Korea will tell you, oh, we have Christians, we have Buddhists, we even have people from the South Korean religion, Chundogyo, I think, one of these sort of native indigenous South Korean religions. But these, of course, are all approved Christians, right? Or nominal Christians who exist to act as kind of a propaganda props for visitors. And the Buddhists also are the same. And of course, North Korea also has, opposition parties, or the Korea Workers' Party, of course, is the ruling party, but there are other political parties as well, which are loyal to, just like in China, which are loyal to the main Communist Party. They don't call it the Communist Party, they call it the Korean Workers' Party. North Korea, which has previously outright denied the existence of such prison camps, indirectly recognized the facilities for the first time during a universal periodic review at the UN office in Geneva in November of last year, I suppose. This would be, I don't know exactly what year that would be. But there are more and more defectors or people coming out of defectors or refugees from North Korea that are giving testimonies or information about what goes on in North Korea. And as much as North Korea tries to block these people from escaping, they seem to be unable to completely shut down the border because of bribery and corruption, and people are able to get out one way or another. So we have to pray for our brothers and sisters in North Korea. And we hope that North Korea can be liberated soon. Those 65,000 people can be liberated soon. And I believe that when China is liberated, when North Korea is liberated, information is going to come out that will shock the world. That will really shock the world. Kind of like the liberation of the concentration camps of Germany uh, shocked the world at the end of World War II. And I think the way that these camps are being operated and so forth. I've heard reports previously of people having to eat the bark off of trees or the grass or stuff like that. That they are because they're they're not expected to live. Just like father was of course in a similar camp from 48 to 1950 from February. Well, he wasn't initially there, but he was eventually transferred there anyway, up until October 14th of 1950. And we've heard about how they were given just sort of one bowl of rice like this, a small bowl of rice, but they were being worked to death. And the average life expectancy was about 6 months there. All right, so just to remind ourselves of the brutality that is going on in North Korea. And North Korea likes to put out all sorts of videos of people visiting there and saying, "Oh, I don't see anything fake here." Well, newsflash, everything is fake. I guess when everything is fake, then nothing appears to be fake, but everything is fake. Uh, what is the definition of reality? All right, let's see. Okay, we got that down. And uh, the stuff going on in the U.S. seems so mundane. Chicago fighting trying to prevent ICE and all this kind of stuff and everything else. I'm sure that to people in the U.S. it sounds like the sky is falling or something like that. But I don't know, in comparison with what's going on with China, with Ukraine, with North Korea, it seems kind of mundane. Anyway, this may also be mundane, but here, let's take a look at this story. Um, this is about Europe. Let's take a look at this one about European socialism. And, debt, of course, is a problem not only in Europe and the US as well, and a huge problem, but debt is really going to bring down the world economy, isn't it? When, we don't know. Maybe not today, probably not today, but things are coming to a head in this, on this area as well. That's why I say, we're getting to a point where it seems like something's going to have to break. On Thursday, Friedrich Merz, the Chancellor of Germany, announced that his country had been living beyond its means for years. Whoa, who'd have thought? uh, stop the presses. Well, this is true with basically, I think, not all countries in the world. Some countries have been living within their means, A few. I think Singapore probably is one country that has been pretty good in that respect, but almost all countries in the world have been living beyond their means. And that simply means that governments have realized, and well, as other governments throughout history have also realized, that no one can stop them from printing more of their money, right? Unless you're like Panama or another one of those countries that uses the dollar or somebody else's currency as your own. Um, if you are printing your own money, then then you can print as much of it as you like. Of course, Germany uses the euro, and that's different. That's not its own money, but still, it's uh, living beyond its means and running a debt-based economy. So the Chancellor of Germany woke up one day and said, "Hey, we're living beyond our means." He singled out its pension system among the most generous in Europe, costing 31% of GDP, which one of his ministers has said had a profound and urgent need to reform. All right, so let's see you do it. They're not going to. To the horror of his welfare loving people, yes, he promised painful austerity to spare young Germans the burden of excessive debt. Right, yes, the horror, yes. In France, I think they tried to eliminate one holiday, one day, and people rioted. We'll see what happens in Germany. But uh, this is the weak point, right, of democracy, unfortunately, which is that the people realize that they can vote themselves whatever they want. So this is why it's important that we say in the Constitution that government cannot be involved in welfare and also cannot borrow money during peacetime, and it also cannot be involved in healthcare, cannot be involved in education. So limit the size of government. We use the Constitution to force the government to be small. That's, gee, I wonder where we can find a Constitution like that. Anyway, anybody who's watching this will know exactly where you can find that Constitution. So anyway, let's see what they're going to do. Right. Are they going to reform? No. His problem was similar, but in fact less grave than that expressed in France recently by its then prime minister. Yeah, then prime minister. Then being the important word there, he said a word about this, and boom, he got kicked out. He blamed excessive welfarism, and especially the pensions bill, for France's spiraling debt, and said that around 48 billion euros would have to be cut 44 billion euros, I'm sorry, would have to be cut from the annual public spending by raising the retirement age and abolishing two bank holidays. Oh, I'm sorry, not one, two. Well, this is, I think, about 5% of the whole budget, something like that. So it's not a big amount. But the public was outraged. And 364 of the 577 members of the France's National Assembly flaunted their populist credentials by agreeing with them and voting to throw the prime minister out. The French, too, love welfarism so much that they pretended not to recognize the damage caused by excessive public spending or the urgent need to curb it. Well, this is true in In the UK, it's true in almost every country in the world right now, especially in the US. You mentioned Social Security. People say, what? What? No. Britain joined this club earlier this summer when the government's comparatively modest proposal to cut benefits was abandoned because Sir Keir Starmer, what are we here? Who's writing this? Why are we calling him Sir? Anyway, all right, we'll go ahead and call him Sir. Um, where do we get them? Sir Keir Starmer, whose administration currently enjoys a Commons majority of 148, feared defeat on it. Labor has decided that apparently, like the people of Germany and France, the people of the United Kingdom will not tolerate cuts in their Social Security payments, whatever the consequences of profligacy. And that's exactly the point. Well, people like free stuff. Okay, maybe not it's free, maybe they work for it and they paid into it and stuff like that, but the consequence of not dealing with this is going to be pretty severe. And that consequence is coming. We keep kicking the can down the road, so to speak, but the road's going to come to an end. At least Herr Merz and the French former Prime Minister of France have been honest enough to admit the unsustainability of their spending policies, with the last French administration hinting that the International Monetary Fund might have to be called in unless spending and debt were cut, right? IMF for a G7 country. That would be something. That would be a shock to the world. And Herr Merz indicating that pensions may have to be reined in. Sir Keir dares threaten nothing of the sort. So although the consequences of inaction may be similar, they may come as more of a shock. Government debt is mainly bought by big institutions and sometimes foreign states, when a country's indebtedness indicates not merely reckless economic management, but also that there might be unduly high risk about repaying what is already owed, things turn ugly. We have seen this in Britain lately with bond yields, the level of interest demanded before somebody will take on the debt, rising steeply. France and Germany and Britain have all experienced long-term upward trend in debt, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and so forth and so on. So let's take a look at what's going on with those yeah, back here. Global stocks under pressure. Okay, what's going on. Okay. Global stocks were in the red on Friday as signs of credit stress at U.S. regional banks raised fears about credit quality in the U.S. All right. So again, here things are maybe coming to a head. Okay. With the European stocks down more than 1%, and in Asia, Hang Seng lost 2.3%. Let's see here. Let's look at say index. Japan also down, so it looks like everybody's in the red here, except for Moscow. Moscow is up 4%. Wow. Okay. So the U.S. stocks also look like these are futures. Looks like they're going to be down at the open as well. And what about gold? Gold is now up above 4,300, right? Yesterday it was 4,200. Today 4,300. And silver up $53. So gold is considered a sort of they call it a safe haven asset, whether you talk about that or not, believe it or not, but still, yeah. So gold continues to climb because somebody knows what's going to happen. Look at the way gold has been going, right? Boom, it's going parabolic. This is the last year. It's going parabolic, right? It's amazing. Gold climbed to 4,340 per ounce on Friday, moving back toward the record it had set earlier, and on track for its strongest weekly gain since March 2020, as investors sought safety amid heightened economic uncertainties. The bullion repeatedly hit new highs this week, driven by renewed U.S.-China trade tensions, with China recently accusing the U.S. of stirring panic over its rare earth minerals control. Okay. Also, signs of distress in the U.S. regional banking sector, compounding concerns over the ongoing U.S. government shutdown. Right, so things getting pretty tight, there, pretty tight. All right, let's see what else is going on now. So that's enough on the European welfare situation. Let's take a look at some of that domestic stuff, I suppose, that Breitbart likes to talk about. Federal grand jury indicts two alleged Antifa members with terrorism charges for attack on ICE facilities. Okay, well, all right. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, ICE should be charged with breaking local state laws. Okay. Oh, things are people are fighting a lot in the U.S. as well. Clyburn is one of the big Democrat senators, or is he House? Anyway, he's been in Congress a long, long time. No, I'm not going to bother him. Severe strain of monkeypox virus detected in Los Angeles. Will they let me look at this? No, they won't. Okay. All right. Well, I'm not gonna, I could look at it by switching my VPN, but uh, uh, Trump administration negotiates most favored nations deal to drastically reduce IVF drug prices. In this is in vitro fertilization, right? And I want to make clear that uh, IVF or in vitro fertilization is, in my opinion, and I think I'm right on this, would be against the Chinese Constitution because in the process of IVF, you're creating multiple embryos, and only one of those embryos survives, and other embryos, as I understand, are discarded. But that would be against the Chinese Constitution, which assigns human rights to um, zygotes. In other words, once the sperm and the ova come together and start forming a human being, then that cell initially it's just one cell that divides and divides and divides, but is a that it has the same that is a human being. It's in a very elementary state, but it is a human being and it has human rights. So IVF would be against Chinese Constitution. Father, of course, promoted adoption, both within his family and also with the women who were blessed with saints in the past. He encouraged them to adopt, he said, so as to continue the lineage of the saints in the modern world. And True Mother, when she was blessed with Augustine, actually did that, and uh, and Father was very happy about that. So adoption is the way to go if for some reason a couple is not able to have a child, their own biological child. All right, let's see here. Leftist president of Chile links Venezuela to assassination of dissident in his country. Dictatorships cross borders. Wait a second here. Venezuela to assassination of dissident, leftist president. I thought they would think they'd be on the same side. Anyway. All right, let's see here. John Bolton being indicted for mishandling classified documents. Okay, so if any of you were ever appointed to a government position, be careful with how you handle classified documents. A number of people have been charged with that crime after leaving office. Okay. And here, DHS announces a $1,000 parole fee for migrants seeking entry into the U.S. So these people, they come to the border and they've already paid thousands, perhaps tens of $1,000s to the cartels. And now the US government's going to tack on another $1,000 to that debt that they already have. Well, I suppose that's, but okay. I don't know about that. Okay, all right. Okay. And we've got one of these transgender models here. Yuck, yuck, yuck. And Trump gives Hamas an ultimatum: stop killing in Gaza or be killed, because Hamas has been doing some revenge killing of people they accused of being collaborators. Suddenly says South Korean shipbuilder helping U.S. revitalize construction capability. Uh, all right. And if they now the Likud party surge in polls after victory. Now, Trump has not been surging in polls. He's recovered on the Rasmussen poll. He's back up to the 50% mark, but I would not say that he's surging, which is interesting. Second Amendment Foundation files suit over unconstitutional search. High school student in AWR Hawkins story there. And right. So all sorts of stuff being said. Pro-terrorist, one battle after another, projected to lose $100 million, probably more. Uh, anyway, okay. South Park. Okay, let's take a look at where shall we go? Um, shall we look at the other headlines on Epic Times? Economists warn of index funds outsized exposure to AI. Now, there is a lot of talk about, AI perhaps having a bubble burst, just like the dot-com bubble a couple of decades ago. And Trump, we're in a trade war with China. Okay, that's not news. Unions sue U.S. to try to stop monitoring of visa holders' social media. Mm-hmm. Supreme Court won't review rule allowing H-1B visa holders and spouses to work. So this one may be a problem because, people who are in the United States, the Supreme Court has said that anyone who is in the United States has the protections that are guaranteed under the U.S. Constitution. So if U.S. government is monitoring visa holders' social media, that would seem to be a problem from a constitutional point of view. But these days, I don't know if that makes a whole lot of difference. The lawsuit came after officials revoked visas of 6 foreigners that have celebrated the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Mm-hmm. We'll see how that works out in the courts. I have a feeling that Supreme Court is going to rule against that kind of thing. All right, we talked about this. China's rocket force disciplinary chief suspected of corruption, Beijing says. So even more people, right, are being purged. And in China, corruption purges are always, always, I would say, an excuse for getting rid of the other faction. Um, and the rocket force is important because those are the ones that actually manage the missiles. These things are coming out just before the plenum, the fourth plenum. And we talked about this yesterday. Antifa's communist roots, violent tactics, and terror designation, right? Supreme Court could outlaw race-based redistricting. Okay, so let's see. Trump refiles $15 billion defamation lawsuit against New York Times. I still don't see any article on the Rotterdam Freedom Festival here. Maybe I missed it in the past. I don't know. It seemed to be. Uh, I guess we'd have to get to AWR Hawkins so there to for there to actually be an article coming from the festival. Okay. All right, that's about it for today. I want to thank you for joining us today, and I'll be here again tomorrow, Saturday. So we will continue to monitor, especially the situation between China and Taiwan, and also Ukraine and Middle East, and all the other places that are about to blow up and the debt situation as well. But let's hope for the best, but always be prepared for the other stuff. All right, God bless Godspeed. May his kingdom come quickly.